Today's episode of Voiced is from Pro Revenge by Axel Raffin and is about a clever IT contractor who turns the tables on a conniving client attempting to take over his hard work. What happens when the client tries to screw him over? Stay tuned to find out. Subscribe if you enjoy. Since so many people assume this happened in the United States, I just wanted to say that I'm from a small country in Europe. The laws and regulations here are different than in the United States. We have a government agency here that has everything to do with registering companies, and they do keep track of who's who. If you are a serial startup individual who leaves nothing but burnt ashes behind you, you cannot do it here. You have to register the owner and members of the board of the company if there is one. If you have a prior history of failed companies or you've broken the law in some regard, you are blacklisted at that establishment. First post, so be gentle with me. I have worked as an independent contractor in the IT field for over 20 years, doing all manner of things from creating simple HTML sites to managing a big hotel's complete IT infrastructure. One of the many clients I had back in the day when I was coding big-ish custom websites was a rental company. Now, I had heard a lot of warnings about not working with this guy who owned it. He had a reputation for being sharp as a tack, backstabbing, and conniving. He was a lawyer, after all. So, I went into the partnership with that in mind. He wanted a new website for his renting gig where people would list their home for rent, renters would sign up and pay a subscription to the site, and he would get the whole lot. Nothing out of the ordinary there. So we make a pretty good deal on paper, we sign it, and I get started on the project. Coding everything in PHP goes well, but he demands suddenly that I show him progress only a week into the project. He wants to see the website front now. This is just the tip of the iceberg. I tried explaining to him that the front-end work isn't scheduled to start until after 6 weeks of back-end programming and that I only had pure code to show right now. The contract we signed clearly states this. He then gets on his high horse and demands that I put everything on hold to do the front end first, design, and then program. I, being really young at the time and fairly naive, agree to this without asking for it to be added to the contract as an addendum and start working on the design now. Now, the contract stated that I was given free reign of the design decisions as long as I maintained the same color scheme and used the same logo on the site. So I make a fast draft in Fireworks. This was back when it was a Macromedia product, before the Adobe acquisition. And within 2 days, I show him. He is not impressed and demands a different direction and sets up a list of demands. I, as always, aim to please the customer and do just what he wants. I design a new layout with his list of demands, but he does not like that either. That is how the next 3 months go. A never-ending circle where he is never happy with anything. Now, close to 4 months into the project, he demands to see a working showcase of the backend. I point out that he himself changed the order in how the project was being done and had demanded that I do the front-end design first instead of the back-end as stated in the contract, which he now turns on me and says, "Yes, the contract we both signed says you will have a working back-end to show me at the end of the month. If you don't honor that, I will have to take my business elsewhere and seek compensation for your lack of professionalism." Okay, I now have 12 days to do a back-end for the site. So I get a friend to help me, and we work tirelessly through a weekend, and I have a good base to work from in 9 days. Mind you, at this point, he has only paid the security on the contract, about 5% of the total price, and has shielded himself from paying by hiding behind. Well, if you can't honor the contract, why should I? Finish XX work, and then I'll pay as per the contract. Remembering now all the warnings I had heard about this guy, I decided to add a special function to the code, just to be safe. More on that later. So now, it's the end of the month. We have a front-end design he is okay with, a back-end that has been finished to about 85% of what is required according to the contract, and I still have 1 month left to finish everything else. Time for show and tell. Since I was working on this development, I was running it on my own development server and showed him this in a browser on his computer. I mentioned to him that since I only had 512 kilobits per second upstream from the server, it might lag a little, but it wouldn't when it would be put on the production server he has for his website at his hosting company. He says that's okay, and the demonstration goes on. As I'm showing him the site, both front-end and back-end, I can see he is immensely happy with it, although he would never say so aloud. He's trying to hide his smile that pops up regularly, and his eyes gleam with all the added ways he can now start making money from. Anyway, he now says that it's way too slow, this is wrong, that's wrong, blah blah blah. I want you to put it up on my production server and see how the speed is. Okay, no problem. I can make that happen. Please pay 50% of the contract and I will get right on it. Okay, I wait a few days, and then I get an email from him where he includes a forwarded message from the bank detailing a transaction from him to me to the amount of the 50% I asked for. So I push the system to his production server so he can take a look at it, under beta.his-domain.tld. I then send him an email stating that he can try the system with the supplied credentials. What he doesn't know is that I knew he had been fishing around for another programmer to do this project, to pick up from a lazy deadbeat who couldn't do anything right. So I knew he would most likely try to deceive me. What I also suspected was that the email he sent me with the transaction proof was a fake, which it ended up being. Pro Revenge 1. Remember that small function I mentioned? Well, what it did was if user X, his user, tries to remove user Y, my admin, from the system without one setting being changed in the configuration first, the system will first delete and purge the database and then remove all the documents in the web root. Well, not 5 minutes after he reads the email from me, he does just that. He tries to delete my admin user from the system to lock me out. Guess who has nothing of the project left? He does. Pro Revenge 2. Since it is considered forgery to spoof an email, especially from a bank, I sent the information to the authorities, and he goes under investigation by both the police and the bank lawyers. Pro Revenge 3. I sold the system to a competitor of his for a better price than originally contracted to him, and last I knew, he was now blacklisted from owning a company, as well as he lost his right to work as a lawyer. I only got that 5% he paid at the beginning, and for working for just over 5 months on this project, that is hardly anything, but the knowledge of his demise will keep my heart warm for the rest of my life. Wow. What a wild ride. This original poster really turned the tables on that conniving client. Talk about a pro-revenge story that's almost too good to be true. It's crazy how the warning signs were there from the start, yet they went in, coding their heart out. But in the end, they played their cards just right. Who would have thought a little code could lead to that level of justice? I'm curious, what's your take on this situation? Have you ever had a similar experience, or do you think our hero could have handled it differently? Let's chat about it in the comments. Thank you for listening to today's episode of Voiced. If you enjoyed daily, high-quality stories, please like and subscribe to show your support.